Pluto and compatibility points. So it doesn't really matter if you agree or believe in astrology. It doesn't matter whether you know about it. It doesn't matter about any of these things. The the chart that we have is our blueprint. So it helps give, like I sort of think, it gives us a language, a vernacular, a way to describe the things that we innately are. Obviously, we can go through stages, and that's not really what this video is about. I'm just, prefacing this. We can go through stages of being secure or insecure, low vibration, high vibration. And each of those signs, each of those planets and asteroids have their own little flavor that they add to things. And I'm talking about Pluto. It isn't, and for those who know about astrology, it may not be an obvious choice when it comes to compatibility. But because of the nature of longevity that Pluto brings to the fold, it's important to factor it in. Again, there will be some people where Pluto is a much bigger factor in terms of compatibility, and then there's people where it's a lot less. But you have to kind of think about the mythology around this also. So first, from an astrophysics or astronomy point of view, Pluto, okay, they sort of decided it was a dwarf planet or, smaller, whatever the situation is. But it's really, really far away. It wasn't even discovered until much later. So what does that tell us? It tells us that, number one, it prefers to be, even if it didn't choose, we don't know this for sure, of course, but it chooses to be further away. It chooses to be concealed, not as obviously seen. It's further away from the sun, so it's colder. Now let's talk about the mythology. So this relates to Hades, right? Hades took Persephone to the underworld to have as his bride for all eternity. If that doesn't show you a link into longevity of a relationship, now obviously it needs to be a choice. It needs to be mutually chosen between both people. I'm not saying that makes it okay, but we also have to pay attention to the imagery, to the nuances, to the flow, to the mythologies when it comes to these things. So if you're a person who has a lot of Pluto influence in your chart, for instance, let's just say you have quite a few aspects to different planets and asteroids in connection to Pluto. Now, again, it will depend on what aspects they are as to how that's going to show up. It depends on the sign that these aspects are related to. All of these change the dynamic and the flow when it comes to how this shows up. Now, Pluto, in more modern astrology, definitely rules Scorpio. So there's some similar cross points. Now, Pluto and Scorpio alike, both are very particular about trust. There's a reason for this. You can't just, when you feel that deeply, when you have these influences, you feel deeper than probably any other, at least in the same way, than any other sign or planet. Now, again, this can be taken to a dark place, obviously. This can be obsession, possession, control, fear, holding too tightly. All of these things can definitely come in when it comes to Pluto and Scorpio, for that matter. But we have to understand the dynamics of why. If you're the type of person who has these in strong configuration, especially when it comes to relationships, but it can be anything. It can be that it's related to the way that you communicate. It's related to the way that you feel. It's related to the way that you love. Any of these things can come in. Okay, so let's just face that fact first. But what it does is it means that because you connect to things on a deeper level, it means that you can't just connect with anybody. You're not going to just have those types of connections with any person who comes by. It has to be something that you feel and that you feel safe in. And it means that when you make that kind of deep bond, you can't just make that bond with anybody. So of course you're going to be protective of it. Like, think about it. You're going to be protective of that energy you've put into this relationship, whatever the relationship is, into this other person. And anything that's seen as a potential threat that could get in the way of that. I mean, it makes sense, especially if you don't feel secure in the relationship, you're going to hold tighter. Because you're like, hey, wait a minute. This outside person can't just come in and mess this up. But that's the interesting part. Again, it's sort of, you can sort of look at the person involved, whether it's a friend or a romantic relationship or a work colleague or whatever. You look at it in those terms. Is that other person as in as I am? Do they feel as deeply? Now, they must on some level in order for you to have been able to connect. But how deep is it? Now, this is going to depend on quite a few things. The more of your chart that's influenced by Pluto, so the more aspects you have to different areas, the more Pluto creates an influence in who you are in those areas. The more Pluto is involved in terms of, like, let's just say you got Pluto in like the 8th house, right? This is an increase in scorpionic Pluto or Plutonian energy in that area of your chart. Again, it will depend on what other planets and asteroids you have in there as well, but it's going to create an influence. The conjunction is powerful because it means Pluto is in such close proximity. It means in that area, you are going to be deeper. You are going to be more intense. You are going to value more tight-knit connections that not a lot of people can fit into. They have to have some of these qualities in order for you to even consider it. Pluto's not interested in involving everybody. So wherever you have Pluto, you're going to be more private. Things are going to be seen as more sacred. And so there's a level of betrayal, and that's where this betrayal stuff comes in. There's a level of feeling of betrayal. It's like, hey, wait a minute. We made a connection here. What do you mean somebody else can fill that spot? No, it doesn't work like that. And this is where it can get interesting. The complexity of whatever signs are involved change the dynamic. They do, they change the dynamic. But wherever you have that influence of Pluto, those possibilities exist. So let's say you have a conjunction between Pluto and Venus. You may not initially think you're going to be, let's just say the sign is in, let's say it's in Libra. Venus Libra is not, this is where Venus wants to be, of course, one of the places, but it's not a very deep, penetrating, all-encompassing combination. It just isn't. It never has been and it never will be. Add Pluto to the mix in conjunction, so it's next to each other, close to each other, obviously ideally within 10 degrees. This changes the dynamic. This person's not going to be as light or as easy to, connect to, as easy to talk to with just anybody. Yes, they can show care and they can show love and they can show connection and creativity and all these kinds of things through the lens of Libra. So there's a lightness to it. But underneath that level, because of Pluto's influence, it changes the dynamic. And it means that, on a superficial level, they could probably do it for a short-term period, when needed. But Pluto comes in and it squeezes tighter. It's like, no, I can't just connect with everybody. I can't just have that type of conversation. I can't just feel like that. And I can't pretend. So I'll do what I have to do because I'm in that sort of social setting. So it's helpful in terms of camouflage, but there's always something just below the surface. Same thing if you have Venus. Again, we could say Venus is in Libra, but it's in the 8th house. Once again, this person's going to be kind of flirty on the surface. They seem like they can talk to a lot of people. They seem to be able to, connect or whatever with a lot of people. But once again, underneath that surface level, it's deeper. And there's a deeper need for connection. Where they have that person, where you have that kind of connection, and it's rare and it's special, and you feel it when it hits. It's not just with everyone. So again, it can be tricky because with Pluto, again, if you don't have something near it, like some sort of Mercury-based sign or Mercury influencing it, or one of the houses that's a bit more open, it can be difficult to find the words to describe when it comes to Pluto. It may not be something that you can instantly describe. It's hard, but you feel it. And when you're around other people who have that capacity, you feel it from them and they feel it from you. Pluto's and Scorpio, anything to do with Pluto, Scorpio, or the 8th house, it's very all or nothing. And the reason is, like I said, it's like a light switch, right? A light switch. If you're around people who don't have those influences in areas that are compatible with yours, or even they don't have it at all, or very little, there's not enough power to turn on the light switch, so it stays off. So you're going to stay at that superficial level, that surface level, because the other you already can feel it. The other person doesn't have that capacity. And again, it's nothing against them. It's differences. And if you don't have that connection, you can't force it. Pluto knows. Pluto feels it. And it's like, whoa. But then you meet someone who has that. Maybe they have a conjunction to Pluto in terms of the placement that you have, that's connected, or, a Scorpio placement or an 8th house placement. Now the dynamic changes. Again, it depends on the other complexities within the chart, how well that all flows and works. But in terms of longevity, the couples that tend to stay together for long-term periods, they have that in common. And again, when you meet someone who has that type of energy that you crave, and when it comes to Pluto, Scorpio, and the 8th house, it's very much about desire. It's very much about craving. It's very much about that deeper yearning, that need, you know what I mean? Like that Hades creeps in and finds Persephone the way that he wants her, and then she has to come to him, to the underworld, because he can't live without her. Now again, it was a story told a long time ago. It was told by men, so there's a whole different sort of dynamic. But that main baseline remains. Anywhere you have influence of, like I said, Scorpionic energy, Plutonian energy, or the 8th house, there's going to be that level for something deeper, something more trusting, something that's filled with desire and obsession, possession, themes of control, power dynamics. Now, this isn't a bad thing when you're around people who crave that as well. That's why it's so important if you have strong Pluto, or like I said, these placements. You need people who have that because they want that too. Whereas if you're around people who don't, they can't stomach it. It's like, it's going to come across as controlling or difficult or all-consuming, suffocating, overwhelming. But to people who have these, it's almost like this sigh of relief that you've wanted. This whole, I can finally breathe because somebody else gets it. I'm no longer alone because this other person understands. And it becomes the thing that draws you to each other rather than repels. So Pluto, I think, is important, especially with people who have strong Pluto in the chart. But again, you have to find people who have the same kind of Pluto influence as you do, because Pluto shows longevity. It shows the desire to pursue something for the long term. Like I said, Saturn also shows this, but it's in a different way. It's more about duty, the things that you should do. Where Pluto, it's more about intensity, desire, trust. If I feel desire for you, that's the first step. Then that makes me want to pursue things further. Now I know I have desire. Do I have trust? Do I trust this person? Yes, I desire them. If the trust isn't there, the desire starts to wane. If the desire is there and the trust, then you want to go to the next level. Yes, I desire them. Yes, I trust them. Is this someone who I want to be all in and they want to be all in return? How deep does this rabbit hole go down? And does this person want to go as deeply with me? There's an interesting dynamic when it comes to Pluto especially. It's this thing of, yes, I don't want to be betrayed, and I have to make sure that we have this understanding for me to pursue things further. But it's almost like when that bond is established, when it's concrete, it's almost like it doesn't really matter what the other person does. I mean, you'd prefer them not to betray you, obviously. But because you have that understanding, and this is definitely Pluto in a healthier light, because you have that understanding, you have that connection, time is irrelevant, distance is irrelevant, different experiences, the things that you want to do, it's irrelevant because you're never going to have that bond that you have with this person, with someone else. Never. You might have other bonds. There might be other deep bonds based on different things you experience, but each of those bonds will be different. And again, when you really get into the nitty gritty of Pluto influence in particular, Pluto really, that influence really does want that one person, that one connection that stands the test of time. It's not like anything else. It's like a particular keyhole, right? And only one key fits. That particular keyhole will remain closed. The door will remain shut forever, if necessary, until that specific key fits. Now all of a sudden it makes sense. Now all of a sudden everything clicks into place. Each mechanism, every single curve, every edge now fits perfectly by design. Does that mean you're not going to have differences? No, you will have differences. But the key points that are important in terms of compatibility, they all fit perfectly. Now the door opens. And that door opens just for that one connection. People who have strong Pluto, Scorpio, and 8th house influences, this is what they want. This is what they desire. This is what they crave. And this is what they search their whole lives trying to find. And will protect it no matter what when they do find it. That's why Pluto's so important when it comes to compatibility. Everything else is fleeting in comparison. So if you're wanting something that's going to stand the test of time no matter what happens, you have to look at Pluto for compatibility.